speaking of someone who likes things difficult and who is something of an adversity merchant in and of himself, I'm going to shift gears a little bit because I'm interested to see where you would take it. Say something nice about Tom Thibodeau.
He has
I can feel the hesitation. All right, yeah, let's go for it.
Yeah, he has surprised me with his willingness to change the lineup. Early in the season, he moved Dante DiVincenzo in for Quentin Grimes, and where would they be right now if that didn't happen? And then more recently, he moved Miles McBride into the starting lineup in place of Precious Achiuwa when they had been starting that big group with Julius Randle and OG Anunoby out, because there was a game against the Warriors where they just completely ignored Achiuwa like, as if he wasn't on the floor. And then the next time they played the Warriors, they put McBride out there. And this is something I've harped on for ever since Tibbs got to the Knicks, and especially since they got Brunson. When teams are pressuring him and when they're putting size on him, you need another ball handler out there. This is why I would never shut up about playing Brunson and Emmanuel Quickley together more often, and how horrible it was that they completely buried Quickley after one bad half in the first half of game 1 of the playoffs last year. Like having that other ball handler out there, having another shooter out there is so valuable when teams are so keyed on Brunson. And for him to belatedly finally realize that with a guy who is even smaller than Quickley, which was this whole thing about not playing Brunson and Quickley together. Like, thank you for learning. Let's just now play him less than 43 minutes sometimes.
Well, you can't always get what you want. He's going to continue to play more than 43 minutes almost all the time. Listen, I introduced this with a little bit of a smirk on my face because, you and I both Knicks fans by ancestral damage and provincialism, and are familiar with the frequent refrains of the criticism of Tom Thibodeau for being a little bit too rigid in his approach to things, not being creative enough offensively, being married so much to certain guys and certain lineups and not to others. And I think this is maybe there's a version of it that's sort of like, this is his cool Woody season where it's like injuries forced him to do other stuff than he would necessarily be comfortable doing and find other answers. And so like if Julius Randle was there, Julius Randle was going to play 39 minutes in the way that Julius Randle plays. Without him, yes, there's the go small more often. There's play more guys who are maybe better suited, are not isolation players, but better suited to do things like get into dribble handoff games when teams ignore them. You got Josh Hart and Isaiah Hartenstein, and them being somebody like we can find other ways to get creative when teams are trying to sag off of us. The same coverages that we use to defang Cleveland, we can figure out ways to beat them ourselves. Leaning more on guys. Like I thought that Precious Achiuwa was going to be the kind of guy that Thibodeau would see make a mistake and then be like, you are excised to Siberia and never playing for me again. But that guy played he played well. He showed something in the minutes, and Tibbs, maybe because of, he needed to, he just had no other options, but gave him more rope. Deuce McBride had, he was not necessarily, they got Alec Burks for a reason. They were like, we need another shot creator, another shot maker off the bench. But then Deuce McBride started playing well, and Tibbs was like, all right, I'm going to give you more of an opportunity here. So there is a flexibility and a willingness to try something new that I think we maybe haven't necessarily seen from Tibbs in years past. And it has served this team really, really well. You wrote a great chunk at Last Night in Basketball about the way he's moved Brunson off the ball more, making Brunson sort of using him more like Steph Curry as a, running around off ball screens. It's been helped declench that offense a lot more. It's made Brunson a more versatile and even more dangerous player. This is not the kind of stuff that we saw Tibbs doing, right? Like finding creative answers to some of these problems. He has the hammer in the toolbox, and he's not going to look around for, even if you had a full toolbox, he wouldn't look around for the other things. He would just use the hammer. So shouts out to Tom Thibodeau for, finding some other tools in the toolbox. I want to kind of go quickly through some.
Just quickly.
Go ahead.
I'm glad you brought up the Mike Woodson season, because I think an important point to distinguish between the two is that in the 2012-13 season, which I'm assuming is the season that you're talking about,
yeah,
they were forced by injuries to go small, but then as soon as they weren't, Woodson went away from it.
Yes.
He kept trying to go away from what was making the team good, and ultimately he did it again in the playoffs against the Pacers, and it doomed them. And then in the very next series, the Heat were like, oh, well, we're going to beat the Pacers by playing, Chris Bosh at the 5 and going 5 out. And even the Pacers were like, yeah, we couldn't deal with that.
Yeah.
Tibbs, to his credit, is leaning into the things that are making them better with the injuries instead of trying to go away from them at every opportunity.
And my reframing there, instead of sinking into a deep pit of despair about Carmelo Anthony getting blocked at the summit, my reframe is going to be Chris Copeland was pretty sweet. I enjoyed watching Chris Copeland play.